Project Hail Mary is a new sci-fi movie directed by Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, starring Ryan Gosling, also based on the sci-fi novel written by Andy Weir. Ryan Gosling plays Dr. Ryan Grace. He's a middle school science teacher who is a former molecular biologist. He's recruited by the government. They want to send him off into space to study something that is affecting the sun, slowly going to kill it. In fact, it is estimated that what is in space attacking Earth's sun right now will destroy it in 30 years and then in time just eventually wipe out Earth. So Ryan Gosling, who has some sort of basis of a study on what it is that's going on in space affecting the sun, he is sent with the space crew to go check out what's going on. While he's up in space, he encounters another being on a similar mission to save their planet from their dying sun. And now it's the two of them forming a very unlikely friendship and teaming up to try to save each other's worlds. This was easily one of my most anticipated movies of the year. Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, they're two of the best filmmakers in the business. They've given us the Lego Movie and 21 Jump Street, and they've also been heavily involved on the Spider-Verse movies, which have been fantastic. And while I never read Project Hail Mary, I am a little familiar with Andy Weir, namely the fact that he also wrote the book The Martian, which was turned into a sci-fi movie, which I absolutely loved. And you get Ryan Gosling to star as your lead. It just all seemed like something that would go very well together to give us something special. And the early reactions for this movie certainly were enamoring that. And I really do love it when a movie actually does live up to its absurd hype. This is an excellent movie. Let's start with Ryan Gosling. He really has become one of my favorite actors working today. I almost feel like he's now a modern day Leonardo DiCaprio. You know, this really good looking guy who's got all this likability, but every movie he's in, he gives 110%. He's been on an Oscar run as of late, hasn't won anything yet, but getting nominated for a lot. It would not surprise me at all if he got nominated once again here. He crushes it as Ryan Grace. Quick little side note, he made a comment recently in light of the success that this movie has been seeing. He said something along the lines of, it's not the fans' jobs to keep movie theaters open, it's our job as movie people to make stuff that is worth going to see. And I'm just like, yes, this guy gets it. And you could completely see that in a movie like Project Hail Mary, where he gives his heart and soul into this character. Because what's awesome about Ryan Grace is he's not someone who sees himself as cut out to go to space. He's not an astronaut. He's a school teacher. For whatever reason, these people believe that he's cut out to go into space and orchestrate this Hail Mary of a mission to save Earth. And at first you might be thinking like he does, like he's a school teacher, how would be equipped to this? But very quickly, you see how smart Ryan Grace is, you understand the studies that he's able to, you know, conduct for himself, the experiments that he does, and you're starting to think to yourself, oh, maybe he's not actually as green to this as he's trying to make it out like he is. Because again, what you see in Ryan Grace is someone who's scared, someone who knows that if he goes and he does this, there's a very good chance he will die. He won't come home. Like, he's terrified of this. It was just a very human performance that Ryan Gosling gave, and I appreciate so much out of it. It brought a lot of heart. And yeah, I'm not even gonna waste time. Some people will say this is spoiler for me to talk about, but I mean, come on. If you've seen a trailer for this movie, if you've seen any marketing of this movie, you know this character's in it. But yeah, what's really impressive with Ryan Gosling's performance is the chemistry he had with Rocky. That's right, this little animatronic rock alien that Ryan Grace befriends when he's up in space. Yeah, Rocky was fantastic. Because what I really love seeing about the two of their friendship is it's a lot of them trying to understand one another. Neither has ever seen or experienced anything like the other before. So as a result, it's them learning what the other is, learning how to communicate. That was a segment I really appreciated. Because I like seeing the science part and them like trying to figure out a sort of communication system that both could understand, both could, you know, learn about one another, both could help each other. But you really do see a really strong friendship develop between the two of them. It leads to a lot of laughs. There's some one-liners that Rocky gives that were legitimately hilarious. And it leads to moments that undeniably made me emotional, namely from Rocky himself. Not even necessarily from what's going on with Ryan Grace, but what was happening with Rocky. I was blown away that I ended up caring so much about this rock. Like, anyone out there who was shitting on this movie because they had a little rock alien in it, you gotta give the movie a chance. I'm telling you, you'll fall in love with Rocky by the end of it. But again, that goes to credit for Ryan Gosling's performance. The fact that he had such great chemistry with an animatronic rock, that's awesome. And staying with their friendship, I do love seeing just how Lord and Miller, with their movies, are so expertly able to balance humor and emotion. They knew when to make you laugh, and they could make you laugh pretty hard, and they knew when to be emotional, and in those moments, they could have you in tears. Sometimes you gotta pick and choose one, or it feels messy. These two know exactly how to balance one another and when to time each of them. And yeah, visually the movie looks phenomenal. I mean, if you're going to have a movie in space, you gotta look great to the audience, otherwise the movie's just not going to work. But yeah, when people tell you to see this movie on the biggest screen you can find, take their word for it, because the visuals in here, the camera work, seriously, shout out to Greg Fraser. That dude, he's one of the GOATs, for sure. There are some shots, there are some moments. I leaned a little bit more forward out of my seat just so I could admire it more. I was so blown away by it. The colors really pop. Certain moments just completely stand out. Like, there's a lot of posterizing moments in this movie. It just made space look so cool and beautiful, and I loved that. I really love how they handled space as well in this movie, because, this movie does the whole, it's like, when you're in outer space, sound does not travel, things could be going on, you don't hear a thing. I'm like, I like that, scientific accuracy. But there could be moments as well, like maybe Ryland Grace is doing something through his suit, so you hear sound like travel through it, so you can hear what he hears a little bit. It's those tiny little details right there that the movie didn't have to do, but it did because it would go that extra mile. And yeah, are there some intense moments in this movie? Absolutely there is. I mean, the movie never lets you lose sight of how dangerous this mission is, how costly this mission is, and how essential it is. So when certain things are going down and Rocky and Grace have to get something right, you're absolutely feeling it. Like, there's one moment in particular, some people have compared it to the docking scene from Interstellar as far as how intense it is and how big the stakes are in that moment. I would have to agree. It had me on the edge of my seat and my heart's raced, and I am just praying for the characters to pull this off. At no point do the characters even feel invincible. You absolutely feel the mortality of these characters, and as a result, you're so on board with both of them. You're rooting so hard for each of them, and you get so emotionally invested with the ones that are on this mission. It really is a movie that just makes you care so much about the ones that are involved with it, and that's awesome. Even for the most part, the movie does a little bit, I don't know if the book does this, my friend who I saw this with said that is how it happens, but it does jump a little bit in between, moments going on in space and moments before the mission when Grace was still on Earth. But even in those moments where it shifted between space and Earth, they made sense, because in those moments you understand more of why, these agents are pleading with Grease to go on this mission and ultimately what leads him into doing so. Like, it's when the movie needed to take a break from space or maybe needed to get you to understand it a little bit more. It had those moments in there, and as a result, rather than them slowing the movie down, it added more to the characters. I would say the pacing for me in this movie wasn't always excellent. I would say the beginning of the movie, it did take a little bit of time to get going. Apparently, in the book, they actually take out a little bit, or actually the book rather, explains more on the beginning of Grace waking up in space and him understanding or realizing what's going on. The movie doesn't really do as much of that, and maybe it would have made more sense if they explored more on that. I understand for runtime's sake, they probably couldn't. But admittedly, the way the movie did tell its story, I was kind of waiting for something to happen for a little while, but as soon as Rocky makes it onto the screen, the movie more than makes up with it, and I was completely locked in from that point forward. I will also say this. I do think the movie did brush through kind of quickly on the scientific part for this movie. I mentioned earlier how I appreciate how it shows a little bit of the experimentation between Grace and Rocky and them learning to communicate with one another. But there were other moments where I think, you feel like Grace was experimenting with something or trying to deduce what something was, and I wish the movie delved more into that science, delved more into how he was able to solve a problem, or how he was able to deduce something, or how him and Rocky were able to figure something out. Sometimes it would present the problem, you get a brief glimpse of them trying to figure it out, and then it's solved. To compare it to the other Andy Weir adaptation, The Martian, I thought The Martian, for me personally, did a better job than this movie at the whole experimentation. You know, when Matt Damon's on Mars, how he's able to make water and grow food and communicate with Earth. The movie did a really good job at showing how he was able to solve each problem and the science that went into solving those problems. I don't think this movie did that as much, so as a result, it did hinder it just a little bit for me. But all in all, Project Hail Mary, it lived up to the hype. Ryan Gosling is spectacular in this movie. Is he Oscar worthy? I would think so, but I mean, there's some big powerhouse movies with some big time performance I think they're going to be attached to him, so he'll have some competition, but he has set the bar. Rocky is one of the best new characters we've ever been introduced to in a movie. The chemistry between him and Ryland Grace, awesome. Visually, it's a spectacle. I love how real it made space look. I love how unique it made space look. The story was phenomenal. The stakes feel very real. The movie was very intense when it needed to be. It made me laugh. It made me emotional. It hit me in all the right emotions. Pacing could have been a little bit better. I would have liked some things to maybe explain a little bit more. Now, granted, maybe upon rewatches, those flaws won't really feel as effective as they were. Not that they were a really big deal, but maybe, you know, upon further viewings, I'll look past them even further. But in the end, for now, this is without question the first must-watch movie of 2026. And it's definitely going to go down as one of the best movies of the year. I'm going to give Project Hail Mary a whopping 9 out of 10, which makes this movie wicked awesome. So that's all I gotta say, guys. Thank you so much for watching my video, and as always, don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.